June 21st, 2010, we here and on the spot. It's my great pleasure to introduce Gary Anthony Ramsey, former news anchor of New York One News. Everybody knows him, we all seen him. He now heads Great Pitch Media, CEO. He's also the CEO of Our News Now. Check it out on the web, www.ournewsnow. Welcome, Gary. Glad to have you.
That's nice to be here.
How's things going?
Things are great. Things are great. We're at a very exciting stage. OurNewsNow.com launched in its test form, and we've been getting great responses. So we're very excited about the future.
I'm impressed. I like that site here. The site's gonna have a lot of stuff that you'll be interested in. I see you got Greg Branch, formerly of BET. We traveled to Africa together.
Yes, I know. Greg Branch will be our managing editor. He's currently living in Uganda with his own production company out there. But Greg knows people all over the world. He could do that job from anywhere. He's a great resource to have.
So we spoke off mic earlier. We spoke about while you was there. We're gonna go all over the place.
Okay, let's go.
We're gonna go.
I got my passport. Let's go.
Okay. What we need to talk about is Greg's out there in Uganda, as you said. And you did something newsworthy out there. Matter of fact, what did you say was you were doing something in Africa and noticed that there wasn't too many people of color out there in the journalism?
In the last 2 weeks since we've launched Our News Now, I've always known that there was a difficulty in terms of diversity, not just in terms of story content, but people actually covering the stories. Now, since Our News Now launched, to give you an example, we found a story about lead poisoning in Nigeria. Of the stories we found on the web, we couldn't find one person of color who was actually in that part of the country doing a story. So, I mean, does it matter? I think that we all bring different things to the table. We all have different perspectives about life. And you bring that to any craft, any position that you do. And if you're storytelling, I find it very difficult to imagine that if everybody telling the story doesn't look like us, that they really get it.
Okay, so we expect to get a great deal of information from Uganda, from Greg out there, and we're looking forward to Our News Now, putting some stuff out there. I'm going to say it again, www.ournewsnow.com. Great Pitch Media, what is that?
Great Pitch Media is really the parent company for all of this. We basically provide media consulting and media training for individuals or corporations. I did that when in a transition out of broadcast. I still had Our News Now on my list of things that I wanted to accomplish, but between your idea and actually getting funded and running, you still have to pay the bills. So that's what Great Pitch Media does for us. Great Pitch Media is keeps the lights on for us.
Okay, I'd like to say Happy Father's Day, but now we're going to start it up. You were original member of New York One from '92 to 2007.
That's correct.
After leaving there, and you formed your two companies here. What have you noticed, or what was the change? What do you do different where you come up, usually on New York One, you'll come up, Channel 7, whatever it may be, you'll come up, you're reading the story, but a person of color, a journalist, what is your role now and how do you look at that?
My role, my mission is to, in whatever little way or large way I can, to make sure that news and information that we get, that our communities get, are coming from the perspective, or coming from our perspective. That's it, plain and simple. You're talking about the war in Iraq, because I use this as my example. If you're talking about sending troops to war and asking questions that lead up to that, if everybody in the room doesn't come from our community, it doesn't really capture the veracity of that decision. If you're talking about coming from a community like ours where many young people join the military because there's a lack of economic opportunity. So you're not just talking about sending people, you're talking about sending our people in a greater disproportionate number. It changes the paradigm of the questions being asked in the White House, of a president, of a congressional representative, of a senator, of any person in power who's going to sign off on this deal. And I really think that Whether it comes when it comes to Washington or power in Washington or power in the media, I think too many people come from the same zip codes.
Okay, so now, as a journalist, an anchor person of color, how was it behind the scene as a news person and what we don't see, leading up to before you come on air? Did you have an opinion in there on what's being said, how it's being shaped, representing the community of color?
In terms of pure journalism, your opinion is not supposed to be in play in terms of the essence of the story.
Exactly.
But there were times when, and this is the thing that people should realize, that there are battles in newsrooms every day over the context of stories. I'll give you an example. I had a boss, a managing editor, supervisor, who wanted to do a story about some rapper who got into trouble. I can't tell you who, but I was in the meeting, and I usually didn't go to those meetings, but I protested because I said there's no correlation between a hip-hop artist and trouble. Anytime a cop is involved in domestic violence or shoots himself or shoots somebody else, we don't report those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And we could easily make that leap. So why are we doing it in this way? You know, so those are the kinds of issues you have to deal with. You know, you have to deal with people who are just not sensitive to, you know, to issues of people of color. I mean, they sit in a newsroom and they don't understand it. They've never, a majority of them have never even had friends who are people of color until they got in or out of college.
Okay, so now I'm gonna ask you, and this is where we're going right on time with that. My son just graduated from college, Albany State University, with a degree in journalism. Mm-hmm. I told him some things that I think he should have did some broadcasts back and forth for us at the state capitol. But neither here nor there, what do you tell a young journalist of color, whether writing, broadcast, if you sat in a meeting with them, what would be something you would talk about?
I tell them several things. I tell them that, first of all, if this is something you're planning on doing, you have to take it very seriously. It's a very serious business that you're in. Not just in terms of, you're a person who's going to be in charge of giving information to the people. Everybody, but people who look like you are going to be paying attention to what you do and say. Number one. Number two, I tell them that they have to understand that this is a new era for journalism. They're going to have to have more than one trick in their bag. They're going to have to learn how to write. They're going to have to learn how to shoot. They're going to have to learn how to edit. Foremost above that, they're going to have to understand what's going on in the world, because the media is now joined through the web and through the new digital era. Mm-hmm. Everything you can get at a moment's notice. So you have to understand what's going on. But the second, other than knowing what's going on, other than that, is that you have to be trained in all of the arts. You have to know everything in order to get your foot in the door and be able to market yourself.
Okay, well, what I would ask, what is your opinion on the bloggers?
Okay.
Because some, you know, they're just someone that felt like writing a story.
Okay, all right. Yeah, now, this is where I have mixed feelings about it, but I don't consider as a rule bloggers to be what you would call traditional journalists. I mean, there are tenets in journalism that bloggers do not follow. But you have to remember that citizen journalism is at the heart of journalism. There are people who have put their lives on the line through the centuries, who did not go to any school, who did not raise their hand in any journalism class, but are telling it like they see it. And, you know, they're getting killed for it. So, you know, I don't think the blogger should be discounted, but I think that what's going to happen is there's got to be, traditional journalists have to work with the bloggers to let them understand that there are rules, there are things you're supposed to do when it comes to journalism and getting
30 seconds.
out.
What? 30 seconds. You're going to tell them what? They need to work with the journalists.
They need to work.
Professional journalists.
Professional journalists need to work with the bloggers to understand the rules of the road, so that they can gain credibility and we can all work together.
Okay, we're gonna be right back after this brief message. We're gonna get back to your company, Our News Now, but we'll be right back after a brief message from our sponsors.